Burley once boasted Italian heritage. Now it's a textbook example of how olive oil branding can deceive. After settling over false product of Italy claims, Burley joined a growing list of once respected names called out for masking mass-blended oils with romantic imagery. Caropelli, Petro Coricelli, Sasso, and Primadana round out the list of brands exposed in this investigation, each tied to misleading labels, poor storage practices, or overprocessing that strips oils of their nutritional value. If you're tired of being lied to, if you're ready to expose the truth they don't want you to know, then don't just watch. Join this fight. Hit subscribe right now so you never miss the facts the corporations hope you'll ignore. Every new video pulls back the curtain a little more, and together we're building a movement they can't silence. Subscribe, stay informed, and let's take back control, one truth at a time. Transparent bottles, unclear origins, and industrial shortcuts have turned what should be a healthy staple into a murky gamble, especially when consumers are led to believe they're buying something pure. But not every brand cuts corners. This breakdown shows that Cobra Estate and Kirkland's Toscano PG are proving that real transparency and quality still exist, and don't have to break the bank. Cobra's lab-tested California olives and Kirkland's strict adherence to regional standards offer a clear path forward in an industry too often dominated by marketing spin. The difference isn't just taste, it's traceability, trust, and actual health benefits. In a market crowded with claims, only a few brands show what integrity really looks like. The olive oil industry has a trust problem, and it's one that's been decades in the making. For years, consumers were sold the idea that if the label said extra virgin and the bottle looked rustic enough, they were getting the real thing, pure, healthy, authentic. But behind that illusion lies a complicated, often dishonest system where mislabeling, adulteration, and deceptive marketing have compromised what ends up in your kitchen. The good news? Some progress has been made. A recent report from the North American Olive Oil Association confirmed that most major U.S. brands now meet purity standards. That's a welcome shift, but it doesn't erase the damage. For years, brands operated in a gray area, cutting corners, blending oils from undisclosed sources, using poor packaging that exposed products to heat and light, and stretching the definition of extra virgin beyond recognition. And some of those brands are still on store shelves today. Burley is a prime example. This brand faced serious scrutiny for mislabeling the origin of its oil. Consumers believed they were buying Italian olive oil, prized for its flavor and heritage. But it turned out Burley was blending oils from various countries, then branding the final product as Italian. That wasn't just misleading, it was fraudulent. They ended up in a legal settlement, but the damage was already done. Trust was shattered, and rightly so. Then there's Caropelli. Once seen as a symbol of Tuscan tradition, this brand represented everything romantic about olive oil: sun-drenched groves, generations of expertise, local harvests. But over time, Caropelli shifted away from those roots. It embraced industrial-scale production and began blending oils from multiple regions. What used to be a product defined by place and process became something much harder to trace. The label still tries to evoke that rustic charm, but the integrity isn't what it once was. Petro Coricelli tells another cautionary story. This brand leaned heavily on the term extra virgin, a phrase that's supposed to mean first cold press, minimal acidity, no heat or chemical treatment. But over time, the meaning of that term started to stretch. Inconsistencies in testing and vague standards meant that consumers buying Petro Coricelli were often getting oils that didn't meet the definition they thought they were buying into. The term became more marketing than measurement. Sasso, another brand with a long history, offers a unique example of how even the packaging can betray quality. Their use of transparent bottles, meant to showcase the golden hue of the oil, actually contributed to its degradation. Olive oil is highly sensitive to light and heat. Exposure causes it to break down, lose nutrients, and develop off flavors. Transparent bottles might look nice on the shelf, but they're a red flag for anyone who knows how olive oil should be stored. A brand like Sasso, which should know better, allowed aesthetics to override quality control. Primadana rounds out the list. A discount brand that's easy to find in value grocery chains, it represents the trade-off between affordability and quality. There's no mystery here. When olive oil is too cheap, Corners are being cut, whether it's from over-processing, using older stock, or blending in lower-grade oils. The product becomes something far removed from the health-boosting staple consumers are expecting. Prima Donna's low price might be attractive, but the long-term cost is flavorless, nutritionally depleted oil that does little to serve your health or your wallet. So where does that leave consumers who still want good olive oil without navigating a maze of marketing tricks and half-truths? Thankfully, there are a few brands that are getting it right. Two of them stand out: Cobra Estate and Kirkland's Toscano PG. Cobra Estate is based in California and takes a completely different approach from the old guard European brands. They back everything up with science. Their oil is tested, traced, and documented. They harvest quickly, press the olives within hours, and share the lab results publicly. There's no guesswork, no vague promises, just verifiable facts and measurable quality. They show that the future of olive oil lies in transparency and rapid production, not mystery and marketing nostalgia. Cobra doesn't hide behind vague geographic claims or ancient-looking fonts. They tell you exactly where the olives come from, when they were harvested, how the oil was pressed, and what the chemical profile shows. That's what modern trust looks like. Data, not declarations. Kirkland's Toscano PG is a different kind of success story. It proves that you don't need to spend a fortune to get real, high-quality olive oil. Kirkland, Costco's private label, has built its reputation on value, but with this particular product, they've gone even further. The PG stands for Protected Geographical Indication, a European certification that verifies the oil comes from a specific region and meets strict production standards. It's not just a label, it's a guarantee. Kirkland Toscano PG uses olives from Tuscany and meets rigorous criteria for origin, processing, and quality. This oil shows that affordability and authenticity can go hand in hand if the company behind the product is willing to do the work. It also sends a message to the rest of the industry: consumers will reward transparency and quality, even at scale. Both Cobra and Kirkland demonstrate what happens when brands commit to doing things the right way. They've replaced marketing spin with real information. They've built their businesses on lab-tested quality, ethical sourcing, and respect for the consumer. That's not just good for sales, it's good for the entire industry, because this market desperately needs a reset. For too long, consumers have been asked to trust packaging over facts. Labels filled with buzzwords, like cold-pressed, pure, or imported, are rarely backed by proof. Certification marks like PGI or DOP are ignored by brands that rely on vague claims and pretty bottles. And the worst part? Most people don't even know they're being deceived. They just taste flat, flavorless oil and assume that's what olive oil is supposed to be, but it's not. Real olive oil should be vibrant, peppery, aromatic. It should tell a story of land, time, and care. That story gets lost when oils are blended from 5 countries, shipped across oceans, and bottled in clear plastic. And once that authenticity is gone, getting it back is no small task. That's why consumer vigilance matters now more than ever. Don't rely on packaging. Look for dark bottles that protect the oil from light. Read the fine print. Check for harvest dates. Pay attention to certification marks. Ask where the olives came from and how quickly they were processed. If a brand isn't willing to tell you that, you should be willing to walk away. Blended oils with unclear origins, discount brands with no harvest date, bottles sitting under fluorescent lights for months. All of these are red flags, and the long-term cost of consuming low-quality oil goes far beyond taste. Over-processed oils lose their antioxidants. Exposure to heat and light kills their nutritional value, and adulteration, mixing olive oil with cheaper refined oils, undermines the very reason you're buying olive oil in the first place. This isn't about being a gourmet or a food snob. It's about getting what you paid for. It's about knowing that the label on the bottle actually means something, that when it says extra virgin, it meets the real standard, not a watered-down version designed to move product. The industry has relied on vague language and uninformed consumers for too long, but that's changing. Brands like Cobra Estate are proving that scientific integrity and transparent sourcing aren't just possible, they're profitable, and Kirkland is showing that you can scale quality and make it affordable. Now it's up to the rest of the market to follow their lead, or get left behind. If you're someone who cares about what you put in your body, or you're tired of wasting money on flavorless oils that do nothing for your health or cooking, it's time to demand better. Start Start asking questions, share this information with people who need to hear it. Leave a comment below if you've experienced the difference between real olive oil and the over-processed stuff. Like this video if you're ready to see more brands held accountable. Subscribe to the channel for more deep dives like this, because this conversation is just getting started. And here's what really matters: your power as a consumer. You've been lied to repeatedly by companies that bank on the idea that you won't notice the difference, that you'll assume all olive oil tastes the same, that you'll keep buying whatever's cheapest or most attractively packaged. They've built an entire business model on your trust and your silence, but that silence is starting to crack. Consumers are beginning to ask smarter questions. They're reading harvest dates. They're checking for PGI and DOP certifications. They're comparing flavor, freshness, and transparency instead of being swayed by Italian-sounding names and photos of Tuscan hills printed on the label. And they're sharing what they learn, which changes everything, because once you've had real olive oil, peppery, grassy, vibrant, you can't go back. And once you know which brands are playing games, it's impossible to unsee it. Let's be honest about what's really happening with these 5 brands. Burley misled consumers with false claims about Italian origin. They blended oils from different regions and passed them off as something they weren't. This wasn't a labeling error. It was an intentional misrepresentation of authenticity. They paid for it legally, but what about the trust they destroyed in the process? Curapelli, once a respected name in the olive oil world, shifted gears. What was once artisanal is now industrial. Their brand still leans on the prestige of Tuscany, but the product has changed. Blended oils, vague origin disclosures, and large-scale processing have diluted what used to be a premium experience. Petro Coricelli isn't much different. It's become another example of how extra virgin means little without enforcement. Standards have slipped, and without rigorous testing, consumers have no way of knowing what's actually in the bottle. The meaning of extra virgin gets murkier every year when brands like these cut corners and still manage to stay on store shelves. Then there's Sasso. Their clear bottles are more than a design flaw. They're a symptom of a brand that values aesthetics over quality. Light exposure degrades olive oil rapidly. Nutrients vanish, flavors fade, and what's left is a product that looks good but performs poorly. It's style over substance, and in the olive oil world, that's a serious problem. And Prima Donna, the bargain bin brand that's all too easy to reach for when prices go up. It's the illusion of value, but what are you really getting for that lower price? Likely an oil that's been refined, stripped of nutrients, possibly mixed with lower grade seed oils, and processed in ways that erase any health benefits. Sure, it's labeled olive oil, but the experience, the quality, the integrity, gone. This is the real cost of ignoring what's in the bottle. The olive oil industry is one of the most historically corrupt sectors of the global food market. From the mafia's involvement in Italy's supply chain decades ago to modern cases of massive fraud involving mislabeled products, it's a space that thrives on opacity. That's why transparency is not just a buzzword, it's the only way forward. Which brings us back to Cobra Estate and Kirkland Toscano PG. These 2 brands stand out because they've made the radical choice to tell the truth. Cobra Estate is what modern olive oil should look like. Grown in California, pressed within hours of harvest, and backed by public lab reports, Cobra treats olive oil like the premium health product it is. They use science, not storybook branding. They control every step of the process and share the results. They've moved past the old model of romanticizing the past and built something rooted in measurable, repeatable, provable quality. Kirkland's Toscano PG offers something just as important: accessibility. You don't need to spend $40 on a bottle of specialty oil to eat well. With Kirkland, you get high standards, PGI certification, and a reliable product that lives up to the label. It's one of the rare instances where private label branding lives up to, and often exceeds, its name brand competition. This kind of integrity matters because the olive oil you choose affects more than just the taste of your salad or the texture of your roasted vegetables. It impacts your health. It determines how much antioxidant power you're actually getting. It influences inflammation, cholesterol, and long-term cardiovascular wellness. Cheap, Over-processed oils do you no favors. They're stripped of polyphenols, they're sometimes diluted with cheaper seed oils, and they often carry residues from aggressive refining processes. These aren't just inferior, they're potentially harmful. And let's not ignore the environmental and ethical side of things. Brands that cut costs often cut corners in sustainability and labor practices too. If a bottle doesn't say where the olives were grown, how they were harvested, and when they were pressed, you have to ask why. What are they hiding? Kirkland and Cobra answer those questions up front, and that's why they rise above the rest. So what should you be looking for when buying olive oil? First, look at the harvest date. If there isn't one, move on. Oil degrades over time. You want the freshest oil possible, ideally used within 18 months of pressing. Next, check the origin, not just the country, but the region. A blend of oils from EU countries tells you nothing. You want specificity. Look for bottles that name the estate, the town, or the cooperative. Then, look at the bottle itself. Dark glass is essential. It protects the oil from light, preserving nutrients and flavor. Plastic bottles, a hard no. Transparent bottles, only if you're buying fresh and storing it properly, which most consumers don't. Finally, don't be fooled by the word extra virgin alone. That term means little without proof. Real extra virgin oil will have a slight bitterness, a peppery kick at the back of your throat, and a grassy aroma. If it tastes flat, or like canola or vegetable oil, you've been misled. So yes, the market is messy, and yes, brands like Burley, Caropelli, Petro Coricelli, Sasso, and Primadana have made it harder to know who to trust. But the silver lining is this: consumers are learning, they're pushing back, they're lifting the curtain on a decades-old deception, and they're demanding better. The tide is turning, slowly but surely. With every bottle sold that prioritizes quality and honesty, the pressure grows on the rest of the industry to clean up their act. So don't settle. Don't let flashy branding or a low price point be the reason you end up with inferior oil. Your body, your health, and your cooking deserve better. Support the brands doing it right. Tell your friends, share the truth, because real olive oil, honest, healthy, and properly made, is out there. It just takes a little effort to find, and once you do, you'll never go back. This isn't just about food, it's about truth, and it's long overdue. For too long, olive oil has lived in this fog of half-truths and marketing spin. Shoppers walk into stores thinking they're buying health, quality, tradition. What they get instead: cut-rate blends, flavorless oils, stripped of antioxidants, and bottles that do more harm than good sitting in warm fluorescent aisles. That's not an accident, that's a business model. When brands like Burley slap an imported from Italy label on a product filled with oils from multiple countries, they're not celebrating culture, they're exploiting it. When Caropelli leans on its Tuscan branding while pumping out industrial blends, they're cashing in on nostalgia, not delivering quality. When Sasso puts olive oil in transparent glass, they're not being elegant, they're being careless. And yet many consumers still buy these products, unaware they've been deceived. That's why videos like this matter, because the only way the industry changes is when people stop buying the lie and start demanding the truth. Cobra Estate and Kirkland Toscano PG wieners aren't perfect because they're trendy or artisanal. They're important because they prove it can be done right, through science, transparency, and respect for the consumer. They're proof that integrity still exists in an industry drowning in fraud. So now the choice is yours. Stay informed, read the fine print, taste the difference, reject the gimmicks, because every time you buy a bottle, you're casting a vote for honesty or for deception. And if you're ready to stop wasting your money on fakes, like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear the truth. Comment with your go-to olive oil brand or your worst experience. Subscribe, because this isn't just one video, it's a movement, and we're just getting started.